missed anything, and so we can get some accurate notes of the session. Any urgent questions from anybody, or should we just dive in? Right, thank you. Now, first up, if I can go on, can we invite Ruth to come on the line to tell us about the off-grid cold chain challenge and the market assessment? Hi there, Ruth.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Ruth Kimani, associate with class at Nairobi office. Happy to share with you about the off-grid cold chain challenge, which is a global competition that seeks to identify and promote energy efficient, sustainable, and affordable technologies that meet cold storage requirements for various cold chains in off-grid areas. And this is by combining both the rigorous technology and business model assessment. So the first round of this challenge was implemented in 2018, and from it we saw 4 finalist companies manage to deploy cold storage solutions on ground out of 10 companies that were shortlisted for the competition. And a key insight was that the off-grid cold chain market is still very nascent, and companies that are looking to enter into it still face major barriers, both around the technological and the commercial landscapes. And these range from complex logistics, weak supply chains, and just a general limited information on the market itself. And so it's difficult to identify where are the market opportunities, who are the key contacts to know in the markets to unlock your businesses. And what was very clear is that cold storage businesses still require a lot of support to prove viability, both for their business models and the technical solutions. And so it is off of these learnings that I'm happy to say that we are preparing to launch the second iteration of this competition at the end of June this year, so just next month. And the focus remains on working cold storage solutions for first mile for agricultural value chains. And the scope is Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Nigeria, and India. Next slide, please.
Certainly.
Yeah, now moving on from the off-grid cold chain challenge, the next interesting activity we are doing is the cold chain market assessment, which is for cold chain storage solutions for agricultural value chains, looking at 3 markets, Kenya, Nigeria, and India, where we are focusing on first mile opportunities. So to guide this assessment are 3 objectives, and that is, first, we want to evaluate and understand the market for these technologies, and as well as be able to characterize and know what are the existing technologies, what are the gaps, what are the needs, and how can we better design solutions for the gaps that we are seeing for this. So generally, these studies, we anticipate with this study that it's going to generate the data that we are seeing that is missing in the cold chain market, that will help us to clearly be able to understand what is sort of the current ecosystem of the cold chain, what are the cold storage technologies on the market, as well as understanding better what are the policies and the regulation frameworks that are in these markets, both at a systemic view, as well as at a national level, looking at the 3 countries. And so this work kicked off in March of this year, and class has been partnering with P-Manifold, which is a research and consulting firm that is based in India that is leading on this effort to conduct this study. And and so we expect to have the report published and launched in August. But currently progress has been made. So we are currently doing desktop research as well as engaging with stakeholders in these 3 markets. just to collect more data and information. And at this point, we would welcome any recommendations that you may have of stakeholders that you think are important for us to talk to, and just cross-check that with who we've engaged with. So yeah, so those are the two main interesting initiatives happening on the cold chain space. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruth. That sounds good. We will circulate full information on all of these things in the short meeting notes. So we'll give you the routes to find out more about all of these things. Moving on now is Judith Evans. Are you on the line there and ready to tell us a little bit about the Africa Centre of Excellence for Sustainable Cooling and Cold Chain?
Okay, thanks, Jeremy.
Judith.
Hi, I'm Judith Evans. I'm in this meeting as part of my company RD&T, but this is really work that we're doing as part of our university work at London South Bank University. And if you move on to the next slide.
Yes.
Please. Okay. So basically, ACES is a large centre which the aim is to help develop cooling in Africa. It's based at the University of Rwanda in Kigali. And so far we have funding from quite a few entities, mainly UK government, plus also some input from within in Rwanda. And the idea is to build a centre that can be used to develop cold chains, to showcase technologies, to train people, to help people get new skills. It's not just technical, it's also looking at business models and also finance models as well. And it's partly to drive innovation, but also to let people be able to look at the technologies, be able to use them, plus also some maybe some research and development as well as part of it. If you go on to the next slide, which shows a picture of the campus at the University of Rwanda. This is just very small part of the campus. The picture is showing on the top right. It's a massive campus with probably 10 different buildings in there, which are certainly going to be useful for training, offices, laboratories. We're currently looking at the sort of development centre, which is where we'll have quite a lot of refrigeration technologies, and we're in the process of also consulting as well, because we're quite aware that what we think might be useful may not necessarily be useful for people on the ground. So it's an iterative exercise where we're looking at what technologies are going to be most useful that we can actually showcase and install there. And the idea really is that we're spending quite a few months this year looking at technologies, the design of the main centre with the technologies, which will probably have a pack house as well, a model pack house as part of it, as well as the ability to be able to look at storage of foods. Plus also we'll have some laboratory testing, which is something that is probably close to a lot of people's interests here as well. Not just for domestic, but also commercial, professional, and also for vehicles as well, and containers. So the idea at the moment is we'll have facilities to be able to look at development of those technologies and testing of those technologies. And I basically can say EforA are already involved in this initiative, but there is a lot of space on site, and so there is a potential there for people to maybe be able to take offices on sites and to really develop it into a huge centre of excellence. And then the idea from that is that this also will be replicable in other countries as well.
Replicated.
Replicated, sorry. And also as well, we have another project that fits very well with this that's recently been funded, which is looking at cooling hubs in Kenya. And developing those into hubs that local communities can use. So
Excellent.
Unless there's any problem with UK funding on that, because as most UK have actually cut some of their overseas aid. As long as that goes ahead, that will be a very aligned project that goes very well with this centre. So if anybody's interested in the centre, just let me know, and I'm happy to provide you with loads more information.
Brilliant. Thank you, Judith. That does sound like a very substantial initiative, and yeah, part of something which is going to be replicated across Africa if there's sufficient interest. Yeah, please let us know. Put questions for Judith on the chat. I'm sure Judith will respond. I
mean, really happy to talk to people as well, because a lot of the information that Ruth was talking about sounds really useful as well.
Exactly, I was going to mention that, actually.
And potentially us talking to each other and sharing information would, really add value on all sides, hopefully.
This is exactly the sort of thing that I'm really hoping our platform and your platform in Rwanda and other things are going to help to do, get these many initiatives talking to each other. And having a centre of excellence like that sounds like a good way to get people focused on cooling together. So good luck.
Sorry, I know I'm overusing my time, Jeremy, but it will be really useful to know what sort of laboratory facilities people would like, so that we can make sure that we put in exactly those facilities.
If you've got some funding to get some labs established, that sounds like something I'm sure people
we've got
very keen to
at the moment the plan is for
steer.
at least 2 labs and a development sort of lab. So I'd really like to know, what people would like to test and, to what standards, and what sort of facility they'd like, so that we can.
So we'll talk about testing standards in a moment, and
sorry,
that's going to be the one of choice, perhaps. Let's see.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. Sorry,
Judith, thank you very much. No, that's really, really appreciated. Please put questions on the chat to Judith. We have to move on, but I think we will come back. Judith, we will get you back to talk more about this at another meeting, I'm sure. Now, it's Riley, I think, was going to say a few words about the technology summary. Is that right?
That's right. Thanks, Jeremy. Hi, everyone. This is Riley MacDonald from class. This is just a very quick announcement that we'll be publishing a new resource through Efficiency for Access, and it's the off-grid refrigerator technology summary. So this is one in a series of briefs that we're publishing on 11 different solar technologies. And the purpose of these is to synthesize the most relevant market intelligence and also report on some of the consumer impact insights that we're seeing for each technology. And through these, we'll also identify new pathways to scale for each technology. So these also update and build on the findings from technology summaries that we published through LEA in 2017. So this is just a quick announcement to be on the lookout for these. We plan to publish these in early June, or the refrigerator technology summary in early June. And thanks to everyone that helped contribute. I know there's a few on the call that helped with these. So yeah, just be on the lookout for it.
Okay, thank you, Riley. We'll look out for that, and we'll obviously flag it to the members of the working group as well, just as soon as we know. Very quick mention of a recently published Gogler report on the off-grid solar market up to December 2020. Has a few stats on fridges, but lots of other stats on other product groups. That's available now at the gogler.org website. Look for their global off-grid solar market report. I will now invite Elisa to say something about the field testing, please.
Well, Drew has a hands-on, Jeremy.
I think we have a hands-on from Drew.
Yeah, sorry, just a quick one. Thanks for sharing the. Sorry, thank you for sharing the data, Jeremy. We're very keen to expand the representativeness of this data. So if there's any companies that are on the call that are selling fridges and are not yet engaged with this initiative, please reach out. We'd love to to work with you to capture your sales and make sure they're visible in the market. There is some an excellent portal that kind of presents your market share and gives you kind of a nice tailor-made view of how you're doing compared to peers as well. So yeah, if you're not yet involved, please reach out and we'd be happy to speak to you about that.
Thank you, Drew. Yeah, I certainly get the impression this is very much a collaborative project, getting this market data together. And yeah, I wish you all strength and support from the members to build on that. Thank you. Should we move on to Elisa? Are you there to tell us about the field testing progress there?
Thanks, Jeremy. If we can jump to the next slide.
Yes.
So Jeremy just mentioned many of you have an interest in understanding like how field testing projects are planned and implemented, and really field testing creates a platform for us to answer many of the important questions. They're really difficult to answer through lab testing, right? And so things like product performance in real world, some of the issues that technology is going to run into with the interaction with consumers, and actually what are some of the impacts on users' life and livelihood. And what we found, like as EforA program trying to like design all these different projects, like these field testing projects, they're really usually pretty expensive to carry out. It's really hard to budget, and there are certain like technical difficulties that we're trying to figure out throughout this process. So like remote monitoring, hardware, and IoT technology being highlighted as one of the barrier. And I think we discussed this particular subject in the previous technology working group call. And this is just to say we're happy to report that Jeremy has helped us to create a field testing guide, address some of these challenges. And really the purpose of this guide is trying to create a step-by-step practical guidance, instructions, and actually even considerations when you're designing and implementing field testing project for solar appliances. And so for this first guide, it's kind of written in a fairly generic way. It could really apply to various solar compatible appliances, equipment. And for the refrigerator testing, there's a specific section that's like more focused on how to, what are some of the appropriate equipment, monitoring equipment for measuring refrigerator performance in the field. And so overall, this is a guide that's like designed for a program that really trying to quantify energy consumptions and performance, and like, and it's like focused on the product that using really solar as the resources. So like that's covering solar direct drive or some of the weak grid refrigerator. This type of field testing project can really just like target testing one single product, or in our cases, we're testing multiple ones at the same time. And it's type of unit that's being used in household or small business settings. And in our purpose, we're using the field testing kind of in parallel, or actually after the laboratory testing. And one of our main purposes is obviously trying to understand the impact for users and consumers and their interaction with the product. And so there's questionnaires and surveys that we will also carry out to really understand the impact side of information. And so Jeremy also created this very nice looking side map or like just a summary chart that's almost like the table of contents for the field testing guide. So you will see it covers everything from like goal setting a baseline, and then like what is the plan for data collection, what's the plan for implementation, and then like how do you manage the project throughout the whole process. And so we hope this is going to be very useful for the EforA program. We're definitely using this document to guide our refrigerator field testing project in India and in Africa currently. I would say the draft is not public yet, but we're definitely happy to share the draft with you all if you're also thinking about designing a very similar field testing project. And feel free to reach out to me to get access to the draft. That's it from me.
That sounds good, Elisa. Thank you very much. I think that the guide, I really should point out, is very much crowdsourced. It's learned from conversations with many people, some of those on the line and others, research of what's good practice sources from various places, and that process is ongoing. So if you would like to have a look at what we've managed to assemble so far, you may well know of other tips and tricks and resources that we should be flagging in here. The whole idea is to pool knowledge, to share that knowledge, to get it more widely understood, more widely known, to help you all do your jobs better. So yeah, get in touch with Elisa. She can share a copy of that document, and then yeah, please let us know what you think of it and how you think we can, what we should add to make it more useful. And then I think, Elisa, the plan is to get it formally published once it's been ironed out, once the wrinkles are ironed out a bit better.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, we're using our field testing process kind of as the validation process to make sure we're like supplementing to the information that we already put in the document. So yeah, that's definitely the plan.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, questions or suggestions, please, in the chat. I see there are several questions for Judith there, people trying to reach out about the ACES Centre. So look forward to hearing more about that. So moving on to Chris and Theo, do you want to say a few words about the R&D projects that are ongoing for refrigeration at the moment under the programme?
Thanks, Jeremy. So, so really, I guess I was going to very quickly just say that, yeah. So for the people that don't know me on the call, I'm Chris Beeland, working at Energy Saving Trust and managing the Efficiency for Access Research and Development Fund. And the fund is set up to provide kind of early stage grants to companies to develop technologies, obviously around appliances. And so just for those of you that don't know, the cooling is quite a significant focus, and quite a few of you are on the call today are R&D grantees, so obviously you know it well. And we've been supporting a number of refrigeration projects over the last 2 years. And what you're going to hear from in a minute, Duncan from Shawchill, is the first project to complete under the R&D fund. And yeah, just one thing to flag is that as projects come to a close, that we have kind of set up this innovator series, is what we're calling it, which is to publish the kind of learnings from each project. So we're trying to share that with the wider community. But I'll hand over to Duncan, who's going to present the Shawchill project today. Over to you, Duncan.
Okay, Duncan, welcome. Are you on the line?
Hi.
If you let me know when you want to flip the slide, I shall do that for you.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Chris and Jeremy. Yeah, if you want to bring up the first one, that would be great.
The first one. Yeah, there we go.
Okay. So yeah, hello everyone. So I'm the senior engineer with Shawchill, and over the last 3 years we've been developing a solar powered domestic fridge, which is based on our patented technology that uses ice and water as a thermal store. The thing about having a built-in thermal store means that it's very suitable for use with intermittent power supplies like solar, weak grids, and also for off-peak loading with mini grids. We've already got about several thousand of these fridges that are designed for medical use installed throughout the developing world, but moving into the domestic sector is a new avenue for us. So we've designed the fridge so that it works as a solar direct drive device with its own solar module and its own built-in thermal store, so that it's not reliant on an existing system for power or for energy storage. However, as we were developing it, we realized that we needed a new control platform to actually integrate the fridge with existing systems. So we applied successfully for some funding from EforA to look at the development of this control platform. So the key functions we were looking for were to monitor the fridge state, the temperature inside the fridge and the state of charge, to regulate incoming power supply, particularly PV based power, so filtering out sort of high and low voltages or mistaken polarity connections and things, And then ultimately, a really key thing was to look at how we could enable the fridge to interact with a pay-go authentication system, pay-as-you-go financing model. So it's been pretty well shown that pay-go systems increase the market take-up for solar home systems by replacing the large initial outlay with a series of much smaller regular payments. And although there's been a lot of interest, there aren't really any examples of this actually being applied to appliances, only to the systems themselves, solar home systems, possibly with a few lights built in. So what we wanted to particularly look at doing was enabling our controller to interact with an existing solar home system with a built-in pay-go authentication, and potentially ultimately to actually have its own standalone authentication system. Great, next slide please. So we've worked on this, I think it was about 2 years. Obviously there was a bit of a hiatus as we went into the COVID pandemic, but we managed to continue with the core aspects of the project, and we were fairly near the end of it by then anyway. So over the project, we managed to come up with a first generation controller, which we put into some sales trial models, and those have been out in Kenya now for about 6 months. And in fact, there were sort of previous versions of that we put into field testing prototypes. And we've now got a second generation controller, which is about to go into mass production. And this incorporates all of those key functions that we were looking for: supply protection, temperature control, some basic user interface, and authentication. You can see here in the pictures, for instance, we've got the compressor room on the back of the fridge, and in the middle there's the compressor. And on the left-hand side, there's a small box, which you can see just below that picture in a CAD model, showing you the actual smart box itself, with a couple of MC4 connectors for the PV modules, and then 2 SPADE connectors that link into the BLDC driver for the compressor. Now, in this second generation model, we've actually incorporated a microcontroller that can do the authentication process autonomously, so it doesn't have to link into any other system. And we've developed a small keypad, which you can see in the bottom right hand corner, that links into that, enabling users to put in their magic number, if you like, which they get by text in exchange for the monthly payments. So originally the idea was that this would link in with exclusively really with solar home systems, but as we went on, we realized that while that had a lot of potential, there was also scope to actually develop a system that runs completely autonomously from that, which is hence why we developed this keypad enabled system. Over the lifetime of the project, we've built up some really good relationships, both with suppliers of components and subsystems, but also with refrigerator manufacturers and the electronic side of things, and also very much in the markets themselves with solar home system providers and organizations that are involved with the financing aspects and running pay-go systems. And that's been really useful, both to kind of gauge the scale of the market, but also to kind of work out what was practical and what was needed in order to make a successful product for that. Another really useful aspect of being part of the getting the EforA funding was that we had access to some capital to improve our own facilities, and amongst the items that helped us with was a particularly useful PV emulating power supply, which I think Patrick has got at Regen T has got a similar one, and And that proved to be really invaluable, both for testing the compressor itself, but also how our controller interacted with that. It's interesting that a normal, even a high quality programmable power supply does not quite behave the same as a solar panel, which has this inherent fixed maximum current in it, which you can't sneak past even for very short periods of time. And what we discovered from that was, in fact, quite a lot, if not probably all DC BLDC compressor controllers have very short but quite high starting currents required to charge up components inside the controllers. Now, I mean, these, you wouldn't see them, you can't pick them up with a multimeter. You need an oscilloscope to actually spot them. But if you're only running off direct off solar without a battery and also without large capacitors, it means that you can't, the fridge won't start until quite late in the day when you've got quite high available currents from the solar panel. Now, the normal
this is the challenge that Patrick has been trying to address on the test method, isn't it? So
yeah,
I think we will come back to this a bit later.
It's quite a tricky nut to crack, and in fact, the normal approach is to put one or two really large capacitors, 100 microfarads or that sort of thing, into the fridge, and we use that in all our medical fridges. But that adds 20, 30, 40, even more dollars to the cost of the fridge, which is fine on a medical appliance, but if you're looking at domestic, that's a really big cost barrier. So we wanted to get around that, and we have through this project managed to do that. A couple of the other issues that we faced were with the authentication. It turned out that actually solar home systems providers that we're working with weren't, although they're all very keen on the idea of authenticating appliances, they weren't quite in a position to be able to do so. So we've had to kind of work on some workarounds for that, and ultimately sort of look at doing it sort of independently, if you like. The other final point, I suppose, to bear in mind is that control systems like these do add cost to the fridge, and even more so, the pay-go financing system actually adds a very significant cost if you look at the total cost to the user, because of the financing charge and in what's fairly high risk application. But on the plus side, it's a model that's become very popular and very successful in the solar home system market because it enables people to spread the cost over longer periods. So that's about it. If you've got any questions, I'd be very happy to take them.
Duncan, thank you very much indeed. This is really great to be able to share the results of one particular R&D project, but there's quite a portfolio of R&D projects that are coming through. And Chris or Theo, I'm sure you will be thinking of having some sort of feedback sessions, webinars, or something to supplement the published results. Is that the case?
Yeah, we did. I think we did a webinar last year, but yeah, obviously going forward, we're also kind of thinking at the portfolio level how to kind of communicate those learnings. So yeah, certainly we'll have more comms outputs going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing at least one question on the chat here about not really wanting to dig into detail here, and this is really great material that we would love to be digging into deeply in these sorts of sessions. And if we put together a session focused specially on these sorts of R&D projects, I would have thought we're going to get some good discussion going, and I would love to be having more now, but we want to try and get through some other material which we think is also going to be very, very interesting to you. So I will move things on now. Please put your questions into the chat. Duncan will see them, we'll see them, and we'll make sure that we get them addressed. And please, if you'd like to dive into more detail on these things, stick something in the chat to say so, send us an email, whatever, and we will make sure we do that, because this is really great sort of stuff that I think we should be going into in more detail. So let's make sure we make the opportunities to do that. I have to move on now to get on to the next sort of, which is also high on your list of interest topics, which is off-grid refrigerator test methods. Patrick, I think you're going to pick this up for us and tell us what you've been up to in developing it. And you've got some questions for the group, I think, which we certainly will be discussing. And maybe some of those touch on things that Duncan's been raising already. Patrick, are you there?
Okay. Thank you, Jeremy. For those who do not know
You're
me,
sounding quite echoey to me. Is that only my audio having a problem there?
I hope not. Am I echoing still?
Yes, unfortunately, it sounds like you're coming through a microphone out large, so not sure where that is coming from.
You're sounding a little bit Dalek-y. I think I can understand you.
Still echoing?
No, now you're completely low. It just
maybe there were two microphones working. Are there? Did you have two microphones on a moment ago? Now we've lost you. You turned them both off.
Hello?
Right, yeah, there's still a bit of an echo, but I can certainly understand what you were saying. Please carry on.
Yeah? Oh, no, sorry about the echoing. As far as I know, I only have my headset connected and nothing else here ongoing, but
There's
okay.
not a loudspeaker on.
No, I cannot do that.
No. Okay, carry on, please.
Okay. My name is Patrick Bex, working for the Region Laboratory in the Netherlands. We are a testing laboratory, and we also have R&D facilities, mainly focusing on refrigeration. In the past, we have tested quite some weekend off-grid refrigerators, and actually we have also developed a few. What's relevant to mention is that we are also, let's say, developing and building our own testing facilities. We are also applying testing facilities, so that could also be helpful in the future, maybe also considering the topics with Judith, for example, raised. Going back to the test method, we have updated the previous version, which was used for the LEAP Awards in 2019. Had some discussions with also stakeholders and people involved in this meeting. What is relevant to mention is that next to the development of the test method, we have also decided with some people to try to take the test method at a little bit higher level than where it's now, and then specifically for the weekend off-grid refrigeration refrigerators. Many of you know that there is a PUQS of WHO. We have the LEAP test method, but there is no actually official standard on standardization level on IEC, for example, or ISO, which is covering the actual performance or energy consumption of these kind of appliances, which will have more and more impact in the future, mainly also due to the, of course, the off-grid discussion ongoing to reduce carbon footprint. This process is started. We have been in touch. I've been in touch with a few stakeholders, and we will actually develop a sort of document in the near future where we try to get impact, where we're describing the impact of this sector. We will produce them to the IEC's committees, which could be of interest here. And one of them could be the committee which is dealing with domestic conventional refrigerators. But there is also an IEC committee which is more connected to solar home systems, and the center is now covering lighting and smaller appliances, but it could be that refrigerators will also be connected to it. Is it acceptable what I'm saying, or is it still echoing quite a lot?
Yeah, it is still echoing. Patrick. But I think I'm understanding you. Are other people managing? Hopefully you are. I suggest you carry on.
Okay.
But maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Keep it as brief as we can to save the echoes and to keep us moving along. Thank you, Patrick.
The test methods which we are now developing is containing 3 refrigerators in scope. This is the continuous supply refrigerators. These are actually the conventional AC supply refrigerators in the, let's say, Western world. But we are also considering DC refrigerators, which can be connected to an electrical battery, also as continuous supply refrigerators. Also, when these batteries are connected to a solar system, because for the refrigerator it looks like a continuous supply when the battery is actually charged and fast enough to keep the refrigerator running. The second category is the weak heat refrigerators, and here we are prescribing a day cycle of 12 hours supply, followed by 12 hours no supply. I will come back to this in a few minutes later. And last but not least, the solar direct drive refrigerators, where we are assuming a radiance curve like you see in this slide, followed by this is taken in 12 hours of daylight, followed by 12 hours of no energy, no solar energy. So that's basically the night process. Next slide, please. We have defined some compartments, and quite some discussion we had also about these. I will not go to them all, but we have now separated it into 2 categories, so-called unfrozen compartments and the frozen compartments. Related to the unfrozen ones, we are prescribing the test method for a fresh food compartment, which has an average temperature of 4 degrees. But we decided also to prescribe a special compartment which has a temperature of a few degrees warmer than the 4 degrees of this fresh food. And I had quite some discussions with Duncan also about this compartment. The actually reason why we decided to define a compartment with a few degrees warmer is actually to allow also appliances with a thermal battery incorporated in the fridge to be part of this this protocol, because the fact that they have an internal battery, it means that it could be more difficult to comply with the fresh food compartment of 4 degrees. And if we would not be a little bit more flexible there, then we would have probably eliminated technology, important and promising technology, which would be, of course, be a pity. From CLASP, we and also within this group, we heard that a lot of refrigerators in off and regrid areas are used for light commercial purposes. People are starting up their business with selling drinks, which could of course be very interesting and good for developing activities. And therefore we decided also to have a compartment with a temperature of 8 degrees. Since this is of course substantially warmer, since these products are not subjective to any decay, so a warmer temperature is fine. Okay, next slide. Related to the weak heat refrigerators, I am putting 2 questions on the table, and maybe it's go too far to discuss this here, but maybe within the chat we can have a discussion or ideas. A key question is it realistic or representative to have a daily cycle of 12 hours supply followed by 12 hours no supply? Because we realize that in some countries the the daily power cuts are substantially shorter than 12 hours, and some of them, you can see it in this graph here also. Some of them have only 2 or 3 or 2, 4, 6 hours of no supply, and it would mean that. Would it mean that if you have if you are put in your design of 12 hours of no supply, that you are making the refrigerator maybe too expensive for areas where you really do not need it? And that would mean that they can survive shorter, and therefore also your thermal battery becomes smaller, and maybe your fridge also cheaper. Secondly, a relevant point is once you have the supply in those weak grid areas, should we also apply the voltage level when present at a specific higher or lower value than the nominal one? At this moment, we are saying the supply voltage must be, for example, for a 12-volt system, exactly 12 volt. But in what extent is that realistic? Or when we're talking about AC, of course, when we are talking about 220, should we also change that to 60 or to 180, for example? These are thoughts which we have and where we would like to have some input. Last slide, please. This is also an issue which I discussed in detail with Duncan also. As you know, autonomy is a key property of an appliance in weak grid areas, and we are struggling a bit in the way how we should, let's say, define the autonomy time. There are actually two possibilities. You can say, okay, I would like to determine the time until the temperature rises 3 degrees of 3K. Or you can say, okay, I'm going to define it until an end temperature is reached, for example, 12 degrees. What you see here in this graph, a typical behavior of an appliance which is having a thermal battery inside, then you see that the temperature rise is doesn't have an equal shape. It's rising a bit, it's going down a bit, and then when the thermal battery is empty, it rises up. So if you have any ideas about how we should present this in a sort of a representative way, I'm happy to hear your comments. Thank you. And sorry again for this terrible, let's say, signal.
Thank you, Patrick. Nevertheless, no, I managed to understand what you're saying, but I hope everybody else did. Yeah, despite the echo. Now, you raised some really interesting questions there about the future of sort of this testing protocol, and I'm kind of assuming in your protocol you're going to have a basic test method which will give comparability between performance of different machines, but you're now looking at whether there are tests to add on to sort of stretch that machine and see how it performs under adverse conditions, I suppose, and it's defining how adverse those other conditions need to be, those sort of survivability conditions perhaps, or performance under those adverse conditions. There's quite a few concepts to unpack probably there, and it's something that needs a fair bit of discussion, I think. Are there any quick reactions to what Patrick has raised there from those on the call, please? Because I do want to make sure we have some input from you, and if any of you have some direct experience that you'd like to offer to answer some of these questions, we'd invite your input, and if not, certainly on the chat, flag your interest. Has anybody got any points they'd like to chip in there?
This is Nick Wynn. I'm assuming that what we're seeing on the graph there is mainly the difference between the temperature, the subcooling below the phase change material's actual freeze point that has to be applied in order to get it frozen in a reasonable amount of time. So the power's on, the temperature is going to be lower, and then as you depend on the phase change material to melt and you develop the delta T of the thawing across it, you have that rise that occurs. So to my eye, until it's past about 8C, that thing has not actually used up its storage, and that would be the criterion I would look at that. I'll also point out, just as an aside, that fits inside World Health's refrigerator envelope, which is 2 to 8 degrees for non-frozen water-based vaccines. So it would be compliant in that range as well. And
achieving the 100 hours there on the graph.
Yeah, exactly. It's a problem I've looked at before in much shorter time frames for little tiny vaccine transport boxes, but trying to find a way out of the World Health situation that was in place 20 years ago when I started working on that, which required a separate freezer compartment in vaccine refrigerators so that you could make ice for ice packs and then get them out, get them started thawing so they weren't below zero any longer, put them in the insulated box and carry the vaccine somewhere. And we looked at phase change materials that would freeze at a normal storage temperature and still hold the vaccine cold enough. And there is one, but it's so expensive that it's ridiculous, and that's deuterium, which freezes at about 4 C and holds there. So you could run a refrigerator at close to 2, get it to freeze, and then let go, and it would hold things closer to 4. But at $600 a pound for the least expensive version I could buy, it was never a practical consideration. But there are other phase change materials that work the same way.
Right. Okay, phase change options there to look at. I mean, any quick feedback from anybody on the supply voltage and fluctuation levels? We do have to move on, but we would love to hear from any of you with experience to bring on that, based on finding a test method that simulates what the conditions that are going to be felt out in the field, so that when these tests are done, we are building confidence that the machines we're testing really can cope when they're out there. And yeah, perhaps those that are designed to cope with these extreme conditions will have to have extra features and functionality. But if that can be recognized in a test method, then there's the confidence to put that on the market, because it can be tested, and people getting that unit know that it can do this more extreme conditions and still deliver the cooling service. And that's the sort of market competition situation we want to try and set up, where equipment that's really capable of dealing with these situations is distinguished from that cannot. So please, we really do invite your input. Put a note on the chat if you'd like to follow up with Patrick and Elisa, and we will make sure we do that. And if there's interest in having a little subgroup to go away and talk about this, we would love to facilitate that, because I think maybe that's something that would be really good, hearing the enthusiasm from some of you on getting this understood and sorted out. Right, I'm afraid we're going to have to move on to, well, I'm not afraid we're moving on to Drew. I'm very pleased we're moving on to Drew, but we are moving along quicker than I'd, or we need to keep it moving quickly anyway. So Drew, could I invite you to say something about the Connect initiative, please? We'll have to keep it as short as you can. I know you've got a lot of material here, but
yeah, thank you very much, Jeremy. Yeah, thanks for the clarification. Hope you're not too afraid to hear my presentation.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. So yeah, my name's Drew Corbin. I work for Gogler. I'm the head of performance and investments. I know that many of you on the call are Gogler members or Gogler partners, but maybe for those that are not familiar, Gogler's the industry association for off-grid solar, solar home systems, lights, appliances, including refrigerators. We have around 200 members around the world, and our services to the industry include networking and events. So we're keen to bring together companies and investors. We do market data, like some of the sales data you saw earlier, but also around investment and consumer data. We do policy and regulatory advocacy, and we do standards and innovation. And so one of the things I'm here to talk about today is the Connect initiative formerly called interoperability. So what we're looking to do is define a universal connector and software standards for 12-volt SHS kits and appliances. So yeah, I hope it's interesting for this audience. I've already heard a couple of touch points from the presentations earlier, and yeah, so it's really nice to be on the line today and get a feel for where the state of the technology in this product is at. And yeah, I hope there's something interesting in this for you. We will share the slide deck afterwards, so yeah, please reach out if there's something interesting there. So a quick snapshot of the market. According to our sales database, there's been more than 3 million SHS kits sold since 2017 and more than 2 million appliances. So that's fans, fridges, TVs and other appliances. There are more than 100 companies for SHS kit and appliances that are reporting data, and at the moment there are 0 connector standards. So that means that everybody's has their own, each manufacturer has their own brand specific connector and software standards as well. So I think it's fair to say that not every company in the industry has a proprietary business model, just that the lack of a universal standard is stopping the cooperation between companies in the supply chain, and meaning that customers can't benefit from this. What we're looking to define is a voluntary standard. There are companies that whose strategy aligns with interoperability, interconnectivity, and there are ones that are proprietary. We think both are legitimate and strong models, and have got good reasons for picking them. And we're just looking to get these standards up and out there, and then have them coexist and compete as part of the commercial landscape. This tech schematic is entry level for, I think, the techies on this call. It's an SHS kit with the input from the PV and then outputs to all of the different loads and appliances with the battery and control unit in the middle. And what we've been working to do over the past 12 months or so is work with a Gogla Technology Working Group and partners to define a family of connectors for power delivery and communications to connect SHS kits and appliances. Where we've arrived at so far, it's not a final selection, but I think we're zoning in on something that we can be confident will serve the industry. Looks like this. So for for lights and dumb loads, we've got a simple and common barrel connector. For phones, basic and smart, of course, USB-A, and then for higher power, larger smart appliances and loads, there'll be a combination of this 2-pin plug and the 3-pole barrel connector. USB-C comes up every time you talk about universal connectors. We're sure it's going to feature in the off-grid market sooner or later. For sure, smartphones are coming on the market with this charger. SHS kit manufacturers will put ports on there, and I expect there will be some transition of appliances there as well. It's a good option. It has its place, but we don't think it's the foundation for an industry standard for rural parts of developing countries. We're looking for something more robust, simpler, cheaper, but also open the door for USB-C. So yeah, this is a work in progress with our working group. Welcome kind of feedback on this. At the moment, we have a new narrative and a new name for this initiative. And this, me speaking today, is part of this outreach. We're looking to get kind of feedback and insights from across the industry. So if there is something that piques your interest, please do reach out to me on it. We're going to be publishing a white paper early next month, and that's going to give more information, and there will be an opportunity to feedback. So as well as the hardware connection, we're also looking at both the electrical compatibility and the layers above that for interoperability, which are the communications protocol and the PAYGO activation. So looking at standardized digital services that will enable PAYGO activation give the functionality for companies, but also a value add for customers as well. So Duncan, you were speaking earlier about the PAYGO protocols. You know, I think some of what has been developed here would be interesting for you. I'd be keen to connect offline and see whether that is serving your purpose. You know, the idea is to develop open standards that appliance manufacturers can opt into and use. They've been developed by Solaris Off-Grid. They've got the Open PAYGO link communications protocol, and Angaza have got Nexus channel, the key code protocol. They're open standards that will be defined and maintained within our ecosystem. So it's talking about the PAYGO mechanism, the PAYGO lock, and this digital handshake that makes sure the asset can't be used on an alternative power source whilst it is still within the payment contract. Cool. So moving on, there's a lot of talk about, you know, why are we doing this? What's the problem, and how, what's our objective? How will it impact the market? And we've been asking this question and tried to capture, you know, some of the expected outcomes that we see from this. You know, it's, I think, an industry transformation, you know, a new generation of technology, and, you know, some things are easy to predict, other things are difficult. Here's a snapshot of what we think the impact it will have on the market, the expected outcomes. So for manufacturers, the design and manufacturing, we expect to be simplified and standardized. This example here comes from the Open PAYGO Link project, where they estimate 80 engineering days to develop their software platform. You know, that's now a readily available off-the-shelf thing that can be picked up and adopted at significantly lower cost and effort. So yeah, reduced cost, increased quality, shorter lead times, reduced capital requirements. For distributors, you know, it gives them increased flexibility and choice. You know, the SHS kit and the appliances no longer kind of bundled together at that testing and certification stage. So further down the line, it allows more customization and flexibility. After sales, you know, on some hands it can be easier, other hands it may be more difficult, but also opportunity for specialization. So you can imagine distributors in a country bringing in products, knowing that there is a wide market amongst the other SHS PAYGO companies and customers that are buying into this connector and software. And then for the consumer, the wider product choice, potentially lower prices, more flexibility, which I'll talk about in a second, and then the kind of the second life and afterlife options as well. So an interesting one really is the ability that they will give a customer to switch. So I'll give an example. You can imagine a customer with a SHS kit and fridge. They enter a PAYGO contract. Maybe it takes 24, 36 months to pay off. After that, they own the system. It's theirs. They're really enjoying the free power. Then maybe after 5 years, the SHS kit gives up the ghost. Their fridge is still working fine, and they want to get an alternative power supply for it. It could be that the company, their original provider, is no longer available on the market, or there is a competitor that's got a cheaper alternative, but they're not able to use that because of the different connector. You know, they realize that the fridge they've got isn't going to plug into the new SHS kit they want on the market. Or maybe they plug it in, and you know, there's some elements of the PAYGO activation or the control which make it non-compatible or function not as well. So, you know, our view is that a universal connector and standardized software can enhance the ability of consumers to switch providers, you know, once they've paid off their original system. So, you know, giving customers more flexibility and choice. But also kind of a different mindset as how they view the market. You know, they're not buying into a single provider and, you know, kind of tying themselves to them forevermore. You know, they're buying into an ecosystem, you know, where they can get products and services from different companies. So, you know, it starts, instead of kind of looking at kind of a PAYGO and a company model, you're almost buying, it's more like a kind of a grid ecosystem, where you're buying into an ecosystem that gives you flexibility and choice in future. Quality assurance and customer satisfaction is a real challenge with this. You know, if an SHS kit and appliance are sold separately, you know, making sure they are well matched and compatible is more of a challenge. You know, we think that the the predominant model in the industry will remain pay-go, even for these follow-on sales of appliances, and therefore that puts the onus on the distributor really to make sure that the match is going to be good, the customer's well informed, and they're satisfied. Otherwise, they're not going to pay their contract. Saying that, you know, there is a lot of work to be done to get kind of the hardware and the software kind of standards and that side sorted, and then get kind of tools and information to distributors to make sure they can do that. And then, you know, in future, I think you know, a B2C label is likely, and you know, looking to get a kind of a whole ecosystem that can support that. I'm just going to flick quickly through these slides. That there's a business economic investment angle. You know, you can maybe read that at your leisure afterwards. Time is short, so I'll keep moving. Main point of this slide is that you know, there is a massive market out there for appliances. You know, we think this innovation can help unlock that and catalyze some of that growth. Our vision for the market, you know, we see proprietary brands continuing, definitely got a big value in a place. We think connect affiliates, you know, buying into this ecosystem, you know, I've got a new kind of emergence and space in the market, and the open ecosystem will continue. And we're trying to create a platform where proprietary, open, and affiliate ecosystems can coexist and compete. What we're doing, this is the roadmap, looking to bring on the standards, the governance, the kind of the strategic vision, if you like, and then looking at some early movers going to market on this later this year. You know, once the connector's been defined, you know, we already know that many companies are going for the Nexus channel, for the open pay-go link, and you know, we're looking at a transition, but probably taking over a number of years before it's really kind of moved and this ecosystem is in place. Yeah, like I say, we're working on a white paper. It's on the agenda at our conference in mid-June, and you know, it's very much part of an industry consultation. We want to raise awareness about this opportunity, the challenges, the benefits, the risk, and you know, hear from companies and sector support players that are in this, what they think of it. You know, what more can be done to address their concerns, challenges, or how they want to take advantage of the opportunity. So yeah, please reach out. We do want to hear from you. There's my my details, and I will stop there. Cool.
Thank you, Drew. This sounds like really quite a technical challenge, but I really like the way you've presented that in terms of the three ecosystems. And I think it seems to me that on the one hand, you are trying to set up the security, protecting intellectual property of suppliers, but at the same time, it's trying to open up markets to wider competition. And it sounds like you're getting quite a good balance there between protecting the integrity of the equipment that's taking on these protocols potentially, and opening up the market so that the customers get access to a wider range of good quality equipment. And it sounds like you've got some protections in there to help both sides of that market, really.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, particularly the pay-go protocols. You know, so it's interesting. Angaza and Solaris have come out and they've put out these open standards. So you know, they're enabling other service providers to offer this. You know, they've created a foundation which other service providers can buy in. You know, they want to you know, create a foundation for innovation in the industry. They see that if there's overall market growth, you know, that's their route to growth as well. So you know, they're looking to offer their services around, you know, the integrations, the data services, the encryption, all the rest of it. So you know, it's kind of moving the competitive playing field in a way that kind of grows the pie for everybody. Exactly. Yeah, that's the point there. Yeah, thank you very much. It sounds like a good initiative there, and you've got a great name for it as well. Any comments from the floor? We've managed to rearrange our agenda, thanks to Richa graciously accepting to reduce what she's going to say today. We don't have very much time, but if anybody would like to comment on the Connect initiative and the presentation that Drew's made, we'd be very pleased to hear from you, or by all means put some comments in the chat.
Any comments or questions for Drew? That's fine. I think this is something that's going to grow in its value to the industry quite significantly. So I wish you great luck with that, Drew. And I do hope more of our members will pick up that invitation and get in touch. Now, as I said, we're planning to have a much longer discussion now to do justice to the impact metrics proposals that Richa and colleagues have been working on to look at measuring the impact that your industry is having in the field. So she has graciously agreed to accept a much smaller slot today, with the promise that we will actually sort out a special focus session, which if members are able, we will organize that for later next week. That will be sorted out by Wendy in due course. But I would like to get Richa to explain to you the basic concept that she's been working on and why it's going to be important to all of you in due course. And yeah, just give us an idea of what you'd like to achieve during a session, which will certainly get organized for the next week or two, according to availability of our members on the line. Richa, many apologies for overrunning and squeezing you, but would you like to let us know what it is we've missed out on today and what we can catch up with in a separate meeting, which I think will allow you to do justice to the area that you want to present.
Thanks, Jeremy, and no worries. I appreciate there was so many attractive agenda lined up for today. It was hard to kind of contain everybody. So everyone, I'm Richa from Energy Saving Trust. I co-lead the research for Efficiency for Access Coalition, and me along with several other colleagues in EforA Coalition are working on this project where we're developing impact metrics for 4 categories of appliances, including refrigerators. And a lot of you would have been familiar with the Gogla impact metrics for solar lanterns and lighting kits. This is something similar, but for appliances. So where the idea is that at the moment, different organizations use different methods and assumptions to report on impact of refrigerators sold. And there is some struggle there. So this project will help develop a standardized list of metrics or formulae for impact categories across economic, social, access, and environmental indicators. And this work is being done by us in partnership with Rural Census, SVT, and Gogla. And how you will use this work is that refrigerator companies will be able to use these metrics for reporting on the impact created from sales of fridges. We'll be publishing a report with details on impact metrics later this year, and another long list of metrics that we desire to create but may not have sufficient data to create immediately. In terms of where we are at and why we wanted to talk to all of you today was that we want to develop these formulae in a manner that is most widely useful because, as I said, these are standardized metrics and different organizations, companies, donors, investors, DFIs would be using these metrics to report on impact. So obviously we need to do stakeholder consultation and make sure they're in line with where you need these to be. The assumptions are right, spot on, useful for you. So I would really urge you, Wendy would be reaching out to you for scheduling something next week according to your availability. I would really urge for as many of you as you're able to join for a short 30-minute or 40-minute session. We'll try and keep it very, very brief, but it's really important for us to get your feedback in. Yeah, thanks a lot. And back to you, Jeremy and Wendy.
Thank you, Richa. It seems to me that these metrics are going to be important for projecting the success of the industry, the challenges of the industry, and how it's affecting lives in the communities that we're aiming to assist. So my assumption, Richa, would be that these metrics will not only be used by Efficiency for Access, that you're looking to get these used more widely. I mean, I imagine colleagues in Gogla and other organizations will be looking to make use of this way of analyzing how the industries impacting communities.
That's right, Jeremy. We'd like to work with a range of stakeholders to make them aware of these metrics and get them to adopt them and report against them. Because right now, with people using different methods, it's hard to aggregate impact across organizations, and these metrics will allow for that. Yeah, excellent. So,
Wendy, have you drawn up a quick plan of action here? There's going to be a so I've just seen a poll come up on my screen. Is that answering Reach's question, or is that something completely separate?
That is
Small
separate,
group
Jeremy.
on.
Yeah, we're
Right.
just trying to get a sense of interest all over, but we will be following up after this meeting with a short scheduling doodle poll just to see availability for next week for close to an hour discussion on impact assessment, which we will love to hear feedback and get all of you's perspective on that. And it will be a very interactive and conversation and discussion. So just wanted to put that on everyone's radar.
Okay, no, that's good. We will send out an update on that then, and there will be a doodle poll. And yeah, we look forward to hearing much more about how that impact assessment process can be made to be as useful as possible for you, the manufacturers, suppliers, users. So thanks for your help on that. I've seen quite a bit of chat going through the box there about particularly weak grid reliability levels, hours of service, fluctuations and things. I wonder if Patrick or Elisa or anybody who's been engaged in that wanted to flag some key findings out of that, and what are the main learning points? What are the points of interest that you're drawing out of the discussion that's going on there?
Of course, I like the way everyone's responding, so thanks for that. I tend to see that the assumption of 12 hours supply and 12 hours no supply is a little bit, let's call it, on the heavy side. And what I like here is what Nick Wine is proposing, or Andre Morrison, that we have a sort of, let's say, different kind of ranges, that we say, okay, it seems to be difficult to have one specific condition which covers all. So what we could do is have a sort of range A, range B, or range C. What's being proposed is that range A can supply outages from 2 to 5 hours, range B from 5 to 8, and C from 8 to 12. Something like that would be a nice compromise. Maybe we can discuss what would be the sensible categories, but I like the idea.
Yeah, and this reminds me of material I've read about the quality of electricity supply coming out of mini grids. There are some very interesting studies that have tried to rationalize the quality of service that mini grids are delivering, and they seem to have, there are some standard metrics that the electrical industry uses for measuring the quality of its supply, and the mini grid sector has got some sort of categorization scheme, I think, already, or at least it's been proposed in a report I saw by LBNL. Whether that's more widely used or not now, I'm not clear, but we can certainly follow that up. But I can well imagine like a categorization of the quality, A to C or A to E, whatever, depending on how severe or high quality the supply is, and then you can categorize your refrigerator according to what it can cope with, I suppose. Is that the idea? So that you can say this fridge has been tested and gives full performance in grades A, B, and C, but by the time you're in supply grade D, you can't expect it to achieve temperature as for full spec. Maybe is that the sort of situation you can envisage there?
I think what you're describing, sorry. I was going to say, I think what you're describing is you could take the categories as suggested, but then multiply each one times a probability that you're going to get that, and then develop a ranking number based on the probability multiplied by the hours or the category values.
All right, probability-based assessments. Yeah, no, there's stuff to explore here, definitely.
An option could be is that you, let's say, make also a combination compared to the region where you are placing them, because many of you may be aware that also the environmental conditions are classified. For example, domestic refrigeration, we have different climate classes, but also for commercial cooling. Maybe you could also have a similar category also related to the grid. And maybe find a combination that you say, I am developing an appliance for climate class X with of weak grid category B or something like that, so that you can that you know where to place them.
And then when somebody is trying to specify equipment for use in a given area, they will understand something of the supply that's available, so they know they've only got they need to look for equipment that is suitable for this particular class of energy supply. This sounds like a pretty useful avenue to explore, and I think we'll probably find parallels somewhere with other products and situations that I think we could probably learn from. So yeah, I think this is a topic we should return to. Maybe we can do a bit of homework and circulate some thoughts to the group and get some conversation going on these things, and maybe some of the other things that have come up in the chat there. I see that Drew has had several offers to follow up with on details. Please, if anybody else wants to join in that, put your name in the chat and we'll make sure that you're connected. Thank you very much. Right, we are coming up to time. In fact, we are slightly over time. Thank you for sticking with us. I think some of you are still there. In a future meeting that we want to put together, are there some topics that you are particularly keen to dig into? What I'd like to try and achieve next time is definitely to have a shorter agenda and more time for discussion. That's really what we need to do to give you the best out of this. So we'll make sure we do that next time. I'm sorry, we had quite a lot of material to try and present in this one for the first time we got together in over a year. In the chat, put in any ideas for things, any proposals or priorities that you'd like to hear about. Test methods are likely to be on that anyway. If you'd like to focus particular discussion on any of the topics you've heard about today, let us know. Maybe we can do a little question as well associated with the doodle that we put out about next week's meeting on impact assessment to try and gather some more priorities from people. So we will put together some notes for today to gather together the leads and things that you may want to follow up on. If anybody's got any suggestions for topics to focus on next time or how to spend that time, feel free to say something now or put it in the chat or put it in an email. And I promise you we'll be very keen to hear from you. Wendy, what else do I need to say before we close? Any other topics? I know that you've set up a storage area on the box folder system. So
yeah,
all of those
Jeremy, if you could go to the next slide.
Oh, that's a good thought.
Yeah, and so just quickly adding that this is our contact information. I'm sure a lot of you have it already, but we do have a technical working group members portal where we do have all past meetings, presentations, all small group discussions. And I think most of you have access to the box, but if not, please do send me an email and I will grant you access to it. We will circulate the recording of today's meeting along with PowerPoint presentation, and it would also be saved in the box folder for you to access, because we do understand that things do get, lost in inbox, and it is hard to find that at some point later down the time. So yeah, I think that is all. We just want to thank you all for just working with us today, and from switching to Teams to getting back on Zoom. And we will definitely, as I said, follow up for next week meeting on impact assessment, which should be a lively discussion. And we'll look forward to seeing most of you next week.
That would be really good. Yeah, impact assessment is going to be important to the future of the sector, making sure that you get credit for the things that you're achieving. Let's make sure we do it in a way that's going to be beneficial to all. Thank you very much. I see I've got one request there to do a deep dive on solar direct refrigeration at a future meeting. We would certainly like to get into that. I know several of you certainly have keen interest in that. And we will circulate other ideas in due course. Thank you all for sticking with us, and have an excellent rest of your day and rest of your week. Speak again soon. Bye-bye.